This is quite a headline. 70,000 at Burning Man Festival are isolated, still stuck as rain returns. One death was reported, but Burning Man CEO said the situation was not as dire as was being portrayed. That's an interesting opener. What's going on down here, huh?
Say one person died at the height of the tonight chaos at Burning Man.
We're kind of screwed here.
Tens of thousands remain stranded after torrential rains led to a total lockdown of the annual festival in the remote Nevada desert. Dust turning to a mucky, messy mud.
The entire place is absolutely just soaked.
Authorities say one person died at the height of the storm. The cause of death under investigation.
I think I could be trapped here for a couple more days.
Suzanne Ford is among those burners still stuck on the playa.
What's it been like?
It's so muddy getting around, like just walking to your tent in the mud is impossible. You know, everybody's putting garbage bags over their shoes or their boots, or they're going barefoot because the mud, you just sink down into the mud. It's a quagmire.
Logistically, it's really difficult to move that many people, and the problem is that the roads look like this, just so you guys understand.
No, he's fine.
Any kind of large scale, like, moving people out operation is really difficult, let alone like large scale moving food in. And they're out in the remote Nevada desert. They're not like right next to a city. It's not like they're just like, oh, some guy a helicopter 15 minutes out, like the police helicopter used that. It's they're out there, which makes it very difficult. We live in America. What happened to planes? Where are you gonna land it? Gonna land that on the mud? I dare you to laugh at big cars now. Big cars are winning this one, except they're not. They're stuck too. Yeah, it's pretty wacky. Pretty wacky over there. What about all the rednecks and the mud trucks? Nowhere near rural Nevada, as it so happens. The majority of the people at Burning Man are, in my experience, insufferable. I saw a lot of people talking about this. How one of the people who posted a selfie from Burning Man, this guy, who, by the way, truly rocking the Burning Man fit. We have what I assume is a $4,000 shirt, a Hassan shirt, a shirt, as you will, wearing some god-awful ugly necklace with a beanie hat with a propeller on it. And you're thinking, what is this guy about? And this is the guy who defended Nestle in court after they were caught doing child slavery. This was the guy who defended Nestle in the International Child Slavery Tribunal. So he's over here having fun. Was he the one who died? Tragically, no. My opinion of people who go to Burning Man is very low. Not just because of that guy. I just consistently, my experience with people who have gone to Burning Man who I knew and people who I hear going to Burning Man, very, very wealthy people. They have very high paying, I'm generalizing here, of course. They tend to be wealthy, high paying jobs. They go to Burning Man to get a break from it all, or they go act like degenerates in the middle of the Nevada desert. They pay a God only knows how much to, not just for the ticket, but everything involved. They take the break from their jobs, you know, and then they go back to being corporate psychopaths in real life. Why does Burning Man even exist still? For that kind of person. For the kind of person who would defend Nestle on charges of child slavery and then dress like this outside. This is a very specific kind of sociopath. I need you guys to understand, all right? And there are a lot of them. Anyway, let's learn more about how these guys are.
Services, no vehicles allowed in or out.
I'm actually going to try to make a break for it. They're saying the gates are still closed, but I've got a four-wheel drive car, and I'm going to try to make it out.
Everyone has a four-wheel drive car. I really think that if a four-wheel drive was all you needed, this wouldn't... Okay. That's the guy who died.
Others finding ways to escape, trudging through the muddy desert. Even comedian Chris Rock and DJ Diplo.
It's muddy still.
The performer posting about the ordeal on social media.
We walked 3 miles now. We got, I think, 5 more.
Making it out after hiking for miles.
Yeah, 8 miles to an asphalt road. that has not been affected by the rain.
And then getting picked up by strangers. The storm system causing problems across the state. In Las Vegas, one person has died and dozens rescued amid heavy rain and flash flooding.
Muddy.
Not all cars are four-wheel drive, dingus. It means all wheels are powered. Yeah, well, you accidentally typed $ instead of 4 because you had your shift down for the 4 instead of just the wheel drive, too. Who's smart now,
Muddy, Burning Man.
Back at Black Rock City, people trying to take it all in stride.
Maybe not the Burning Man experience you were expecting?
Well, that's a little bit of like a Raining Man experience.
Instead of a burn, feeling the brunt of a powerful storm.
And Liz, is there any indication when these festival goers will be?
We're probably going to be hearing about the downstream consequences of this for a while because the attendees of Burning Man are disproportionately wealthy and powerful. There are a lot of corporate, like, wealthy psychopaths who are probably going to, like, make this our problem by talking about it for a while, and I refuse to feel bad for them, except for that one guy who died. Maybe he was good. Kind of a coin flip, and whether or not he was, kind of hard to say. You know, Burning Man and all. But obviously, this is one of those rare disasters where there's very little to say in terms of, like, sociological or infrastructural analysis, because the whole point of Burning Man is they do it in the middle of the desert. Like, that's not really an infrastructural issue. That was what they signed up for. You know what I mean? It's like an infrastructural analysis of the submarine guys who died near the Titanic. It's like, okay, well, they did that. You know, it's not like the government had a responsibility to build some kind of like depressurization pocket somewhere near the Titanic. Like, this is what they did, you know? So yeah, usually after a disaster, I would go on and on about, well, this could have been blah, blah, blah. But like, no. Maybe, I guess the most we can really hope for is that one of the sociopath attendees of the Burning Man, you know, reflects on the rainstorm in the desert of Nevada and thinks maybe there is something to this weather change crap. You know, this climate change. Also, somebody linked a picture of a beautiful full rainbow. So yeah, there we go. Maybe it was all worth it for this. More worried about being near cities and not the dumbass in the desert. Well, if they did their festival near the cities, it would be harder for them to get away with their drug use and casual discussion of which types of insider trading they're planning on doing next. So it makes sense they'd want to be out there in the desert. Sky gone woke? Always has been. This is probably a dumb question, but why do Republicans not like to admit climate change exists? Because, well, there's kind of a shift on this where more Republicans are saying that it exists, but they're saying it's not anthropogenic. That is to say, they're saying that it exists, but humans did not cause it. But it's largely because the oil, coal, and natural gas industries have been ungodly effective. You have to think of all the other industries that are downstream of them, like their connections with, say, the automobile industry. But they have been unimaginably effective at, like, capturing the interests of a common thing that corporations will do to get what they want from policymakers is they will threaten to not develop new projects in a state unless the representatives from that state vote in their favor, you know? So, like, a common thing that will be done with, like, Boeing, for example, the arms manufacturer and plane manufacturer Boeing, is they will have this big distribution system where in order to build this big new thing, like a new jet for the U.S. Air Force, something like that, they will make sure that the production process for it involves every state in the union, every single one. And the implicit threat there is, hey, listen, Senator, hey, listen, Congressman, we need you to vote for this project, this spending bill. We need you to approve more defense spending in order to approve a government buy of more of these upcoming jets. And if you don't say yes, we're not going to build our plant in your state. Tens of thousands of jobs missed out on, and we'll make sure you know it. We'll say, we couldn't do it here because we were not convinced after negotiations with this politician. We were not sold on the idea that this state was the right place to... You get the point. It's like that with coal and oil as well. And there are a million things they can do to tip the scales. So Republicans will either not admit to climate change or not say that it's anthropogenic because they have leaned heavily into corporate interest and corporate interest adjacency, and that's just the consequence of that. Another big one, of course, is that a lot of far-right religious people believe that the things that we observe as being caused by climate change are actually the rapture happening. I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds like really out of pocket, but legitimately, I would be willing to bet that upwards of, and maybe more than, a quarter of the people in America who vote believe that this so-called climate change is just a sign of the end times. Never underestimate the lunacy of the evangelical right. They are incredibly crazy. Minnesota just did this with giving nurses stronger bargaining rights because the Mayo threatened to move their big project to Florida. Yeah, yeah. I have evangelical family, and they believe exactly that. You're totally right there. Yep, death cult. Have you seen Hank Green's video on how he doesn't think climate change deniers really believe what they say? Well, yeah, no, well, I have not seen it, but I agree, and I've been saying that for a while.
I don't believe people who say that they don't think that people are causing climate change. As I have said before, and I think it's important to keep this in mind, there are 3 ways of denying climate change. And there's sort of a sliding scale, and people will sort of slide around on it depending. Some folks, I've seen them slide up and down this scale, just them. And so this is part of why I don't believe that they don't believe, is they go from, I don't think that the earth is getting warmer, to I don't think that people are doing it, to I don't think that it's that big of a deal, to I don't think that it's worth the costs. All up and down the scale, they'll go, like, depending on the room they're in, they'll change where they are on this scale of climate denial. But over here is impossible. I don't believe that anyone who's paying attention doesn't think the earth is getting warmer. And that's going to get harder and harder to deny every year.
Everyone on Earth, except for 5 people, believes that the climate is changing. There are people who lie about it because they're in bed with the coal and oil industry. There are people who lie about it because they secretly believe that it's the end of the world, that it's the end times, and they don't want to give the game away. They don't want to come across as that much of a religious lunatic because they know that it would make them look that way. But it's very, very difficult to genuinely believe that the climate is not changing. 5 people. But why? What's the point? It's so destructive to grift for this. They don't care. About 40% of the people in the US believe we're living in the end times, broken down by religion. Yeah, believing we're in the end times is basically the #1, like, most Christian thing there is. Christian groups have always believed that the end is nigh. Always, 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 always. Interesting. Historically, black Christians actually are the highest end times believers, more so than evangelicals. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. I have no idea. Of course, it's worth noting that, like, living in the end times isn't necessarily religious. After all, there are agnostic and atheist people who believe it too. They might think of end times as like, oh, society is collapsing. Yeah, it seems black people are disproportionately represented here. That is very interesting. I'll have to look into that. That's more than half of the time the U.S. has been a country, big ol'. And it goes back further than that, I'm afraid. All right, well, lesson learned. Don't go to Burning Man. Organizers are planning to, quote, burn the man. That's what they do out there. Burning Man, they're burning the man. Like, the man. Except all the people doing the burning are like 7-figure salary Silicon Valley tech executives who are like personal friends with Epstein. So, you know, the irony is lost on them.